Next slide, please, Steve. So welcome introductions first. My name is Stephanie Crane. I'm delivery lead for T-level programs. That would be the T-level transition program strategic lead, T-level program strategic lead, and industry placement provider support program strategic lead. And I have strategic oversight of the Association of Colleges for the delivery package on behalf of the Department for Education. I am joined today by a fantastic panel who's going to tell you all about the T-level transition program. Firstly, Frank McGloin from the Department for Education's T-level transition program team. Please give us a wave, Frank. There we go.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us, Frank. Julie Tower from the Department for Education. Thank you, Julie. Stephen Watterson, the Manager for T-level Provider Readiness at the Association of Colleges, who's keeping us all in order today as well as our host. And we've got two absolutely amazing providers from Wave 1 T-level and T-level transition program provider settings. So we have Matt Reynolds, who's Vice Principal from Cirencester. Thank you for coming here today, Matt, and sharing your experience. And we also have Mark Johnson, who is the TEC Partnerships T-level lead. He's going to tell us all about their fantastic program too. Next slide, please, Steve. So as with any webinar, we're just going to do some quick housekeeping to make sure you have the best experience possible. So we do ask that you keep your microphones on mute. You don't need to switch off your cameras because we're not over that magic 100 mark that can affect sound quality. So please keep your cameras on, and that means that we can see your reaction and also get to know you a little bit, which also helps in building that relationship for the future. We do ask that you keep your microphones on silent just to reduce that background noise and allow everyone to be able to hear the context that's being said. At the end of the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask the panel any question you want. And throughout, please just put your questions in the chat function and we'll pick them up throughout and then hopefully pick them up at the end in a little bit more detail as well. As you've probably already seen, this presentation is being recorded and that allows you to share the link to this presentation that will be sent out afterwards with all your internal stakeholders. So all registered attendees today will get the link and then please disseminate it within your institution to hear a little bit more about T-level transition program there. So hopefully what we're hoping to get out of today for you as an audience is that we will share a little bit of examples of T-level transition programs delivery methodology. So give you a little bit more of a background about what T-level transition program is and demystify that a little bit. Share some emerging practice that is coming out, and so I'll be able to give you a little bit of details from those initial delivery providers about what T-level transition program is like on the ground. And then we're so lucky, as I said, to have two delivery experiences and be able to share their perspectives on their unique T-level transition programs that have been delivered now for the second year. And then also tell you a little bit about the fantastic support that you receive from the Association of Colleges team to help you fully funded. And what you put in, you get out is what I will say, and that's probably what the providers will say as well. Some fantastic opportunities to get that support, to hear from other providers who's going on that T-level and T-level transition program journey, make some great networking opportunities, but also get that wraparound support that's going to be really important in making a great T-level transition program. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give you an idea of where we're at with T-level transition programs. So it took a phased implementation approach. So only T-level providers were able to deliver a T-level transition program, and it had to be in the routes that they were delivering the T-level. And as such, we've done the phased growth approach. So at the moment, we have about 67 providers who are offering a T-level transition program from last September 2021 to 2022. And we had about 3,500 students who are currently studying T-level transition programs, getting that focus on trying to get them to that T-level. And as that's broken down, you can see that the most popular one is health and science, so 1,250 students, followed closely by the digital with 900, and then following up with education 750 and construction 650. So a really good mix of different students on those different T-level transition programs that are on offer at the moment. All different provider types we have delivering T-level transition programs, so schools, UTCs, DfE colleges and sixth form, so it can work for everyone in every different setting. Next slide, please, Steve. So hopefully, as part of your prior package for signing up for the webinar today, you will have received a little bit of information that we wanted to give a foundation about what T-level transition programme is. And please, we say, you know, it's a YouTube link, share that with all your staff, use it as a real support tool. Unfortunately, you probably hear my voice a little bit more, which is, you know, which if you can suffer, then you know, please move past that and just really get to the focus of what that video is trying to tell you. So hopefully it's a really good dissemination tool within your organisation for your staff to know what the T-level transition programme is. We have a revised framework for delivery from the work that's gone on from wave 1 and 2 providers feeding back. It's really unique policy in that way, because the providers within the Matt and Mark's provider settings had a really unique opportunity to feed back on what they thought the T-level transition programme could be and work. The T-level is a new qualification, and so there is no prerequisite qualification there existing. So providers had the opportunity to shape and feed back to the department in a really unique way. And that revised framework for delivery looks at students developing knowledge, skills and behaviours in the 5 core areas that are up on your screen now. So there's industry relevant technical knowledge and skills, and they're actually now set out in national technical outcomes for each route subject area. Skills for successful study, and that's been a real focus that you'll probably hear from the providers, that T-level has some really challenging study requirements and assessment requirements, and providers have really tried to work hard on developing those skills, and that's acknowledged in that knowledge, skills, behaviour area there. English, maths and digital, which we know is a crucial barrier for these students. Knowledge and skills for the workplace, feeding into that industry placement on that T-level, and a positive attitude and behaviours. And that is really, really key in getting those students where we want them to be. I will say again, providers have that flexibility to augment those core knowledge, skills and behaviours to meet the needs of your students and your local employers. So there was no 2 T-level transition programmes that were saying in any institution. So we know and recognise, and this framework recognises that you need a very unique programme. So it still has that flexibility, but also gives that little bit of framework rigour that providers really, really wanted in the feedback. Next slide, please, Steve. So in front of you, you'll see the real holistic approach. And I was actually in the panel meeting where the providers were so adamant that they wanted to recognise that in this diagram. So the transition programme, nothing acts in isolation, and this diagram really represents that holistic approach of the interchanging core knowledge, skills and behaviours across 6 delivery components. So the diagnostic monitoring guidance period, which is absolutely crucial, and we've had some amazing innovation in trying to unpick from skills ID maps, the wider skills that why these students haven't quite got to the T-level that they want, and then really working hard on close monitoring, some every 3 weeks, to keep an eye on the progress of these students. So it's been really fantastic to see that innovation in that diagnostic monitoring and guidance period, thinking about the broader skills that a student needs to be successful, and not just those academic or technical skills necessarily. Potentially essential skills, traditionally soft skills as well, being worked very hard on. Also those technical skills and knowledge, understanding that students love the subject and the route that they're going for, and wanting to develop and give them a platform to build upon. And those national technical outcomes for each route have been again fed back from providers about what is a baseline of what we can expect students to need to have knowledge of before they go on to that T-level. English, maths and digital, so time and support towards those English and maths qualifications that are so vital, and if a student doesn't have a grade 4, then they need to continue working on them. It is a study programme, and that is study programme guidance funding rules there. And experience of the workplace. So we actually have some students across the country who have very high grades, grades 8s, who are on T-level transition programmes because actually they're not quite ready for that industry placement element of their T-level, and they're going to spend a year working on all these different things, but also spend a little bit more time in their personal development on those experience of the workplace, and you have that flexibility. And so giving the students an introduction to a mini introduction to that industry placement in some ways, or whatever you feel they actually need would most fit them to get them to where they want to be. Next slide, please, Steve. So I wanted to just give you a quick taste, and I know I've already touched on this a little bit, and it's taken into context the fact that there is those 60 plus providers who are delivering, and no two programs being absolutely identical, but we are seeing some patterns emerging of what providers are saying are really important to unlocking that barrier and getting that student to that T level. So regular diagnosis of a student's needs. So really thinking about these students potentially might not have the personal development skills to understand an awareness of their own positioning and ability, and so doing quite rigorous monitoring of them and swift interventions. We have 2 providers who have moved to every 3 weeks of assessment methodologies just to keep them on track. And one provider describes it as a personal development boot camp, in fact, trying to get those self-awareness skills really embedded. So lots of diagnostic work going on to understand and unpick these students. Increased time spent on work preparation activities, absolutely crucial. These are often students who are missing confidence. We've been through COVID. And so lots of providers are trying to give them a scaffold of real work experience preparation activities, which you'll probably hear from Matt and Mark. I can see Mark nodding along there as a real crucial part of TEC's programme. And there's been a trend for the project-based learning approach, and Matt will probably give you a little bit of an insight there, because that's the foundation of Sirencestors. But probably unpicking the assessment methodology on the T level and providers trying to prepare students for that extended project qualification in a scaffolded framework way. So lots of projects and looking at this in a different lens, and I know Matt's going to talk about that lens in a little bit as well, so that you don't teach the T level in the same way that you teach a traditional BTEC, for instance, and how can you embed those learning skills on a T level transition program for the student. We are seeing, as I say, English and maths, and I think I can already see a comment in the chat regarding the barriers that English and maths for a lot of our students face, and the entry requirements which providers set for T levels, often including those GCSE English and maths grades, but also the competencies being much more difficult at the T level, and some providers wanting to prepare students for the English, maths and digital skills that are required to be successful on that T level. Different diagnostic tools, as I say, fantastic. Matt's going to give you a little chat about his very unique diagnostic method at the start of their T-level transition program, but ID trackers, certificates on broader skills that employers very much feeding into matrices that we're seeing, employer-led matrices, study skills, digital skills, again, absolutely crucial. These students might not have the most confidence when it comes to examinations. We've been through a period where they haven't sat examinations, for instance, and trying to really prepare them well. Next slide, please, Steve. So I'm going to stop talking now, because the real stars in the room are Matt and Mark, who are delivering this on the ground. And so I'm going to move over to Matt Reynolds at Cirencester, the Vice Principal, to give you a quick whirlwind tour of his fantastic T-level transition programme.
Thanks very much, Steph. Appreciate that. Hello, everybody. As Steph says, my name's Matt Reynolds, and I'm VP at Cirencester. And really what I'm going to look at for the next sort of 5 minutes or so is a look at whether you should actually do a transition program, and why it can be a really valuable part of your curriculum. I mean, do you just do your existing collection of level 2 program, or what you might currently do in your college or sixth form to provide for people who have not done so well at school and need to retake that school year, or do you create something new? Why should you have to have something new alongside what you currently do in the case of a transition program? So I'm just going to have a kind of a look at that. So to start off with, I mean, if you really think about what does the level 2 provision typically do, if you just give me the next click there, Steve. So typically, I think most of you would recognise that a level 2 program can be effectively like a smaller, lightweight version of what students are going to progress on to do. It sort of often sets them up really nicely for that progression. In the case of vocational courses, often units are very similar to perhaps an extended diploma. A student may go on to some of the units may even have the same names, very similar themes. So typically, traditionally, a level 2 program is often designed to be a vehicle really to prepare students for sort of the full fat version of what they might take when they're ready for level 3. But if you could just give me another click there, Steve, please. So what's a T-level? Well, if you imagine a T-level is a bit like this rather tasty looking gatto, it is a completely different beast, essentially. And it shares some limited content with old themes for sure. So, you know, you'll recognize if you've been looking at T-level specifications that some of the themes and content will be similar from older versions of qualifications. But actually, the T-level itself is something quite different. And so it requires something quite different to prepare people to be ready for it. If you could just take me on to the next slide, please, Steve, that would be great. So if we have a look at where we're trying to take them to, when I say it requires new skills, I think a lot of transition programs about preparing students for T-level. So it's a vehicle specifically designed to get learners ready to take a T-level. And essentially, T-levels do have a different model of delivery. I mean, a lot of people typically, when they look at a T-level specification, the first thing naturally that you're going to do is try and rationalize it or make sense of it through the lens of what you know, and sort of steps that I was going to talk about. And I think you do naturally, of course you do. You're trying to make sense of it from what you're familiar with. And it can be very easy to look at different elements and think, well, that part is like Unit 1 and that part's like the old Unit 5 and so on. But if you go down that road, you're probably missing the point of what a T-level is actually capable of. It has a different way of working. And typically, a lot of T-levels are really well designed for delivery by a case study rather than a sort of unit by unit type approach. And so if students are dealing with case studies, they will require a different set of skills of how to work in that way. And also language is something that is really worth considering. I think if a student is going to be aspiring to be an architect and work through, say, the building design T-level, the type of language they would use in a pitch as an architect would be quite different than perhaps somebody who was going to go on to a business T-level. So it's really important to recognize actually the different sort of weapons that you want to equip them with to make them ready to do a T-level. T-level also has this massive competency focus. It's not just about what do you know, but it really is about what can you do. And I think, again, in a transition program, you have that opportunity to build in competencies which are directly relevant to a T-level and place that student in a really attractive, as a really attractive prospect for doing a T-level because you've built those competencies into their transition year. Personal development, more than ever before. I think we work with employers like we haven't done it in years, to be honest. We know that employers want young people who are confident. I think I used the word agility the other day when I was talking about the sort of people that employers are looking for. And so in building that personal development and behaviours of learners, there are certain set kind of like a crib of skills that learners look for, which you can build into a T-level program. You have so much flexibility to do that and focus on it, more than just running a normal series of 5 or 6, you know, level 2 or repeat GCSEs or whatever. You get a design. You have to design that wraparound program. T-level connects with the workplace in new ways. What I mean by that is actually opportunities for exposure to industry are tremendous, and in truth, the most success we've had with our transition program has been with how closely we've tied transition into T-level practice and have that cross-pollination between T-level students and transition students. So rather than them feeling as if they are on a, they're not exposed to T-level yet, it's having them seeing and being aware of, being involved with the students they're aspiring to be, and having connections with those T-level teachers in their transition program. T-level demands what I call like the commitment behaviours as well. It's about building vision and proactivity and effort into your learners. And again, transition offers that vehicle to do so, because these are key industry attitudes as well that the workplace is looking for. Steve, the next slide, please. So really, this is where we go back to our gatto and our pint of milk being enough for it. It's about ingredients, it's about having the right ingredients for this new thing. This is a quote from a member of the AoC team, Suzanne, who once said that traditional level 2 has not been designed with T-levels in mind, and I think that is so true. I often quoted by myself now, but I think it is so true that your traditional cluster of level 2 qualifications, T-levels were never even on the horizon when those were invented. So they don't typically have the same skill set that are required. The old collections of qualifications don't necessarily cut it when it comes to preparing somebody for a T-level just on their own. Now, we also found that if you're just going to rewrap your existing level 2 program and rebrand it and call it your transition program, again, that's not going to be adequate. But then that all feels a little bit scary then, because you can think, well, we've got a level 2 provision, we've done it for years, it leads students onto our A levels or onto our extended diplomas and so on. So why do something different? I think in this case, this is absolutely probably a once in a career opportunity, to be honest, to design something from scratch, which is purpose built, bespoke built for this new gold standard qualification. Also, it gives a chance for your teachers, your level 3 teachers, your T-level teachers, to influence what goes into this program. So they can think, what do I want in my classroom next year? What would I like my students to be like? And in that case, you can build into your transition program everything that your level 3 teachers would like. And in that respect, where some people have concerns about, whether they have what qualifications they do in transition year and so on, this is your chance to build the perfect delivery mechanism for people into T-level. Can I have the next slide, please, Steve? So, okay, so Stephanie's already shown you this collection of elements of the transition program already, so I'm not going to dwell too long on it, but one thing I'd just like to focus on is that this is a group of aspects which, if you really look at them, are largely about skills, experience and development. There are so many opportunities here to build these learners into just sort of perfect candidates for your T-level. The reason I got a target on there really is to bear in mind that a transition program is for targeting students for T-level progression. So it doesn't necessarily mean you stop your existing level 2 program, because there may well be students that is the perfect fit for. But if you have students that you want to progress onto a T-level, this gives you the opportunity to design that specialist program for them. It's specifically designed to answer to T-levels. Now, the way we've modelled it, which has been the most successful, has been having that sort of true integration with T-level students. There are lots of opportunities where students can be involved with T-levels, be it the level 2 students being audiences for student presentations, going on the same trips, being involved in some of the same tutorial program, having some of the same sort of exposure to employers, visits and so on, where transition students can feel part of the T-level family. And for us, that's been a big part of making sure it doesn't feel like an I failed school year. It feels like they're definitely on a progressive route with real, genuine goals built into what they do. And I would also add here that in doing so, if you're just trying to design this type of system, and you're obviously it's all new, so how do you kind of make headway? I would just big up the support that is available to you, both from our friends at the AoC, Department for Education. There are a number of other kind of aspects to this, such as the ETF training and so on. There are lots of people, and there is lots of help on tap from people who are willing to help you achieve this. So I would just say, if you're designing a program like this, use the help that's available, because it is excellent. People listen, they care, and they respond really quickly. So just to kind of a shout out to the support mechanisms that are available. Last slide for me, please, Steve. So I think, my advice would be, we're about to go into our fourth year of transition now. So we were one of the sort of wave one folks, so we've got our kind of pretty much got our heads around it by now. I would say, see this for what it is. This is absolutely an opportunity. I would say, have the confidence to design anew. It does take confidence to jump this way. The easiest thing in the world is to try and rewrap your level 2 or whatever. But see this genuinely as an opportunity to build some of the best level 2 provision you probably could ever have. You get to build specialist teaching teams as well. I think for us, we've had things where, typically, like most colleges, to be honest, you'll have a few people who are just sort of born level 2 teachers, and then often the team is kind of topped up with either staff who've got spare hours, or somebody who's lost a set in the collapsed set somewhere else, so they pick up some level 2 and so on. In this case, I think use this as an opportunity to build genuine specialist level 2 teams. And to do this, you will need to train your staff. Staff will not be confident generally in designing a course from scratch. They're fine with revising things, but in designing a program from scratch, that takes some nerve. So I think if you're starting out on this road at T-level of transition, I wouldn't underestimate the training you may have to put your staff through to get them in a position to be able to do what you need them to do. But as I said, there's a lot of support out there for you to take advantage of. Make level 2 a really strong pillar of your provision, and I would say do everything you possibly can to destroy that I failed school year. It really is a chance to completely rebrand and repurpose this part of your provision. And one of the things we found with the types of elements we built into our wraparound transition program is that parts of that are certainly rubbing off in other parts of level 2 provision that we do, because the program's just so strong. Yes, it's different. Yes, T-levels can be tough, but just because they're tough, it doesn't mean they're not the best things out there that you shouldn't have a go and try and do it. So I would say, be brave and design the best progression vehicle and experience for your learners as possible. And for us, we found the transition program was just liberating and an opportunity to do some of the things with level 2 we wanted to do for a long time. Anyway, I hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Matt. That was absolutely wonderful and inspiring to hear your fantastic experience at Cirencester College. I'm now going to go to Mark Johnson at the TEC Partnership. He's their T-level lead, and he's going to build an insight into what they're doing at the TEC Partnership, formerly Grimsby Institute. So over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Johnson. I am the Curriculum Manager of Digital Computing and Games at the Grimsby Institute. My lovely colleague Shannon did this on Tuesday, so hopefully everyone gets the same amount of information, because she did a fab job. So hopefully I can do just as well. Next slide, please, Steve. So at the Grimsby Institute, we was one of the first waves to run T-levels. So since 2020, we've been delivering a T-level in digital production, design and development, and the transition program. So we're in our second year of both of them currently. And we also ran a T-level in education and childcare, who also had a transition program. We've also got more of these coming soon in our college as well. So far, the experience on the course has been excellent. Within our first wave, we had the T-level starting on its first year and the transition program. So it was about linking them two things together. So how we did this will be on the next slide, Steve, please. So at the Grimsby Institute, we go through something called curriculum purchase. And with this, we worked with local employers and our T-level leads to discover what would be the best route for our transition learners. So in this instance, we use an accredited program, the BTEC First Extended Certificate Information Creative Technology for the digital department. Okay, it is the same qualification as we run for our normal level 2 students. However, to make it more individualized and unique for a transition program, we use substituted units. So instead, where they would do game design units on the normal level 2, we would look at units like cybersecurity, web development, etc. However, that is not just the end of the transition program, it is about the study program as a whole, so any additionalities. So we run a level 2 e-safety additionality. We also run something called masterclasses, which is based on something called Curriculum 2030. What is your different industries going to be like in the future, and how can our transition learners have different masterclasses based on that? So things for our Curriculum 2030, we had like Python boot camps, robotics, Dragon's Den pitch ideas. We also have the wraparound content with BAPD, so behaviours, attitudes and personal development. And we also have work-related skills, so preparing them to go out, not just in the industry for their programme, but also when they go onto T-levels and afterwards as well. So that'd be things like creating CVs, a industry relevant portfolio, completing client briefs, involving guest speakers and workshops as well. Next slide, please. So work placement, like the T-levels, there is a work placement opportunity on the transition program. And this is 100 hours for each T-level transition learner to complete. The T-levels as a whole have about 315 work placement hours. So we wanted the transition learners to feel what the experience would be like on T-levels. So they do pretty much the equivalent of a year's worth of what the T-level do on year 1. And with the employers, they go out and complete set objectives, which are based similar to the objectives they would have to complete on the T-levels as well. In some parts, the transition learners do work hand in hand with the T-level learners within the employment opportunities as well. So learners have attended various workplaces, and we've assigned different learners to their different specialisms as a whole. And as stated previously, development of soft skills is very important. With COVID, a lot of learners have lost that communication, the social skills needed for the workplace. So part of the transition program as a whole is building up their resilience and their communication skills. And the transition program is a fantastic opportunity for them to learn them soft skills. They get to enhance their knowledge, skills and behaviours within curriculum and further, and they get to improve their interview techniques. Transition program work constantly giving learners the opportunity to have interviews. Even if they don't get a placement, we ensure that they do have an interview with the different employers that we have. Next slide, please, Steve. So the enrichment opportunities we have on the transition program. We've had guest speakers throughout the year. So we had Andrew Wilson, who was the CDO of Microsoft. We've had Jordan Brompton, a co-founder of MyEnergy. We've had Chris Harrison from Ultimaker and Andy Green, Managing Director of Like Limited. We've also had guest workshops with Richard Astrom, who's a speaker and broadcaster. We also do trips and charity events as well. So trips to Bletchley Park, gaming conventions and 24-hour game-a-thons. So getting the community involved with what's going on in the area as well. Competitions are also at the forefront of what we do at the Grimsby Institute and the Special and Transition Programme. Especially in digital, the digital market is very competitive. So as well as working with employers, we ensure that learners are competing in various competitions throughout the year, such as World Skills, inter-college championships, and something we call Competition Carnival, which has been happening this week. So learners have been creating their own websites this week. And we also offer additional accreditations as well. So the Microsoft Office Specialist Suites and Azure Fundamental Certificates with Microsoft as well. Next slide, please, Steve. So within the course, we have the knowledge, skills and behaviours that are needed for transition learners. So at the Grimsby Institute, we actually have our own matrices to decide on what knowledge, skills and behaviours the learners would learn throughout the year. Depending on the different course, you would tailor these for them. And they are numbered between 1 and 9. So 9 being the lowest, 1 being the highest. And throughout the year, we track their progress. So where they come in during initial assessment and where will they finish at the end. So due to the way that we structure this, learners develop an incredible set of knowledge, skills and behaviours with a focus on preparing them for the T-level programme and future prospects. Next slide, please, Steve. So in my opinion, a successful transition programme doesn't require excessive planning for a completely different qualification. If you work with your employers and your T-level leads, there might be accredited versions out there that would suit the course as a whole, and working with the T-level lead, you'll be able to see how the components of a T-level match an accredited level 2. It's benefited by an extensive enrichment opportunity, so it doesn't end at just the main qualification. It's about the study program as a whole and the wraparound content needed to create a well-rounded transition learner moving up to T-level. And the end result is it results in a well-prepared, well-rounded learner, and the experience they get, no matter what course they go on after, they'll be well-rounded and be able to work in an employment setting. I believe that is everything from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was wonderful to hear your activities at the C2 partnership, and I'm sure we've got lots of questions coming in. I know to Steve as the host and on the chat as well, so thank you. I'm going to now go over to Steve Wasson, who I know a lot of Wave 4 T-level providers will know really, really well, who is the delivery lead for T-level programmes at the Association of Colleges. Steve.
Thanks very much, Steph. What I'm going to do is I'm going to outline the support for the T-level transition programme providers from the AoC to assist them with their planning for the year. So the transition programme support starts 1 year out from delivery. So providers signing up for September 2022 will be aiming to do their first delivery from September 2023. So the AoC support takes that planning year as the first year of support. And then we also support through the first delivery year of the T-level transition programme. So that's where we are in terms of how we support the providers. Each provider will be allocated a designated relationship manager to support them in their planning. Now, this person is the main point of contact for the provider with the AoC, and this person will also potentially pass information through from the Department for Education or the ESFA through to providers. Providers will have access to the T-level planner for shaping and recording their planning throughout the year of their T-level transition programme. This T-level planner was designed in conjunction with Round 1 providers and covers all aspects required to successfully implement the transition programme. Regular meetings will take place between the provider and the relationship manager to support the planning and the progress in the planning, and to identify the next steps and what still needs to be done in terms of getting to successful implementation. And the relationship manager will offer advice and guidance from previous waves of providers, and will share good practice from previous waves which are relevant to that particular point in planning. The AoC team also runs events. So for example, we run national learning events which cover relevant strategic topics, but we also run route specific technical focus groups which are designed more for delivery leads and delivery staff rather than the strategic staff. In addition, we run peer support networks and webinars. These events are specifically designed to support your planning for your T-level transition program, so it's expected that you make every effort to attend these events. And on a monthly basis, there will also be a newsletter which comes out, which covers important information about the transition program, messages from the Department for Education, but also it covers some small case studies of exciting or interesting things that are going on in providers who are actually delivering the transition program currently. Okay, thanks very much, Steph.
Thanks, Steve. And I think, you know, the big lessons learned from those wave 1 and 2 and 3 providers is if you go to these sessions, then you will be fully supported to implement, and you get so much added value out of them from the networking opportunities. And there's been some real solid professional relationships made cross country with the implementation of their T-levels and the transition program. So they are fully funded. You only get in what you put out. And so we really do say to providers, you know, please engage. It is an expectation of the programme, but actually the outcome of that is something really, really amazing, and a once in a lifetime opportunity, as Matt has alluded to there. So thanks, Steve, for that. I'm going to go over to Frank McGloin at the Department for Education's T-Level Transition Programme team now.
Hello, hi everyone, good afternoon. As Stephanie said, my name is Frank McGloin. I work for the T-Level Transition Programme delivery team, and along with my colleague Julie Toa, who's here today as well, we work really closely with AoC and with providers on the successful preparation and delivery of the programs. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation so far. What I'm going to do now is just really tell you what the next steps will be for you if you decide that you do wish to deliver the T-Level Transition Programme. Basically, the 4th year of T-Level Transition Programme delivery commences on September 2023. If you're going to sign up to deliver for it then, your preparation year will begin this September 2022. All 2023 T-Level providers and those 2020, 2021 and 2022 T-Level providers who are not yet delivering the T-Level Transition Programme are eligible to take part. But it's important to note that providers must be approved to deliver a T-Level in the same route that they're delivering a T-Level Transition Programme. If you do intend to deliver the programme from September, what you should do is complete the T-Level data collection or TLDC form accordingly. All T-Level providers were lined up to deliver T-Levels in wave 4. We sent an email about this on the 16th of May, informing them that it must be completed and returned by the 10th of June, which is the final closing date. What will happen after that closing date, after that particular deadline, so to speak, what will happen is that your designated AoC relationship manager will be in touch with you to arrange an initial conversation and in order to take the first steps to developing your program. This is intended to take place before the summer break and ideally will take place as soon as possible before then. However, if you're keen to get all this process up and running as soon as possible, you don't necessarily have to wait for AoC to get in touch with you. Once you've completed your TLDC form, you can instead contact AoC directly at the email address that's laid out on the slide there, tlevelsupport@aoc.co.uk, and they'll be in touch as soon as possible after receiving that to get the process started. And in conclusion, all I've got to say is I hope you do make the decision to take up the T-Level Transition Programme and to deliver it. I think it's a great option for your students going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. And so, yeah, some really important information there. If you want to begin your journey as soon as possible, which I know a lot of you will want to, and get that support in place, we have a team of dedicated advisors, including ex-Ofsted inspectors, ex-SLT members who act as the relationship managers, and they will be assigned as your relationship manager. All have a wealth of knowledge, particularly with T-levels, and they will be your designated one-to-one support on this journey. So the quicker we find out that you want to get on that journey, the more swift we can be to get you that support point of contact. So I can see we've got some questions that have come in, and I know we've got some private messages that's come through to the host. So what I will do is try to get through all the questions today, and if we don't, we will make sure that we send out a list of all the questions that have been asked today, but also in Tuesday's webinar following this webinar, and also a follow-up email just reinforcing the information that Frank gave there and the key dates and the key contact details again. So I'm going to go over to Matt first at Cirencester, and I've got a question regarding your progression rates from your T-level transition programs, Matt. So I don't know if I'll give you a little bit of a feel for how your first cohort of T-level transition program students are doing.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Steph. We have basically the progression works out, I think, around about 75% of transition learners go on to do T-levels. And then as for the rest of them, quite an interesting thing that's happened is because the transition program equips them with all of these skills that employers are looking for, they go into work or further training in the workplace. So it's actually as a program to kind of support and prepare students, either ideally, of course, for transition into a T-level. If they decide not to, they're still actually really well placed after this type of such an encompassing wraparound program to get a job instead. So that's kind of the profile of ours.
Thank you. And Mark, I know we had a chat when I came and had a meeting with your team, and you were telling me how you can actually pick out your T-level transition program students from your T-level cohort.
Yeah, some of our T-level learners come into our transition program and talk to learners overall about their experience. From our first transition learners from last year, so they would be starting T-level this year, we had about 50% progress onto T-levels. As also Matt said, we also had learners that went on to like an apprenticeship or worked with employees from that, and then we did have the rest that went on to other courses that we offer at the Grimsby Institute as well. I do recommend the peer-to-peer working environment with T-levels and transition learners. That's the best way for your transition learners to also see what the T-levels are like, and the best people to offer that are the learners themselves.
Fantastic. And I know, Matt, you're nodding along there because myself and Steve actually met with every single round one T-level transition program provider, and the biggest refinement to the program was exactly what Mark has just said, that trying to get that cross-pollination. So that's something you've been very keen to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, for us, we really wanted to break the mold of this I failed school year. We wanted this to really feel like it was a genuine, had genuine goals and progression attached to it. That students, when they sign up to this this sort of program, you know, they're on a mission basically to get themselves onto a T-level. And we found what was really successful was again, like making them feel part of that family. And so we looked at as many opportunities that we could to expose transition students to the level 3 T-level students, but also to the T-level lecturers. So particularly there's great opportunities coming up as well with the NTOs, the technical element of transition programs that's coming online. It's a really great vehicle, if you like, to get your T-level teachers to come and run some sessions with transition students. So they get to have some lessons from those T-level teachers. They get to work with the T-level learners, and then the other things like sharing tutor things, employer visits, trips, and so on are all just really good opportunities for them to feel fully involved, and you know that there's a kind of big plan for what they're going to do at the end of it. Because I think sometimes, you know, we've certainly found with level 2 in the past, often there is a sense that students can feel a little bit lost. They haven't done as well as they thought they were going to do in school, not quite sure what they want to do, and sometimes they just need something to aspire to, and by attaching them to integrating with the T-level as much as possible, we've just found that their enthusiasm just goes through the roof. Basically, it's been quite an easy fix actually. You know, tie them in with the T-level and they love it, and so it's kind of just find as many opportunities as you can to do that, because it certainly pays off.
Thank you. I've got some more sort of institutional level questions here that are coming in. So I'm going to ask firstly about your entry requirements to Mark and Matt, and then also about English and maths requirements during your T-level transition program. It sort of all feeds in, doesn't it? So I'm going to go to Matt first and then over to you, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Steph. Yeah, for us, I put a thing in the messages there to say we're not really like a selected college as such, you know, and for our transition program, we say on our website, you know, that you need 3 GCSEs at grade 3 or above to be on the transition program. One of the things we found is the students do tend to have a spiky profile that come onto transition. They've probably not worked out well with some of their GCSEs, but other ones they might have performed in particularly well. So we also felt we have enough time with them actually to get them where we need them to be. So we weren't like so hung up on entry requirement. What we're probably more hung up on and more focused on is effort. And so we do, and this has been particularly handy in the recent years with tags and CAGs and however reliable they may be, is we focus on student effort. So how much effort they actually put in when they're here, how dedicated they are, how much work they do beyond the course. And so we've really focused on effort as well as a way for them progressing from this. And another element is a pitch to progress. So students actually, at the end of their transition year, they sit down with the course, T-level course team of the course that they want to go on to, and they actually pitch to that team why they should be doing the T-level, why they should progress. It's fantastic for their sort of presentation skills and so on. So a lot of it is sort of just building in attitudes, really. Attitudes and effort is what we're really, is probably more important than what they did when they were 15, 16. If they've got the right kind of drive, I think there's enough time within the programme to really get at them what they need to do.
Matt, and I can't not ask, you don't actually tell your members of staff the entry grades of the students when they come in for the first term, is that correct? Yeah, that's true. It's on our we don't tell staff the entry grades of students until Christmas, and which is like been an interesting experiment. And sometimes, you know, teachers typically they want to know exactly what they've been dealt, so and they can work out their differentiation and all this sort of thing. But if you're a practicing teacher, you will know you can walk into any class. You could walk into any class in my college, and within about 5 or 10 minutes, you'll know the dynamic of the group that you've inherited. And so, yeah, we've kind of rather than being fixated on what's happened in the past, we're more interested about how they're going to perform right now. Thank you. Over to you, Mark. Entry requirements, GCSE.
Yeah, so entry requirements, especially for the digital transition programme, we ask that they come in with either a 4 in maths or English as a requirement. However, they would get a reset opportunity in the November reset to give them 2 best possible chances of getting grade 4s for both maths and English. The other qualifications, we normally look for 4 3s and above from that. But it is a strong emphasis, especially in the computing area, for the maths and English.
And we do know, and there isn't a set standardised entry requirement. There's different entry requirements across the country. We have an entire cohort of students on the T level who are missing their GCSE English or maths at one institution. So they are not set. It's about those individual characteristics. Julie, I'm just going to quickly come over to you regarding the accountability measure, which I know has come up in the chat. So there is, just reinforcing your email, there is currently no performance tables on that progression data, or don't you want to just clarify at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so at the moment we are still in sort of the development phase or the growing phase of T-level transition programme, and until we reach sort of full national rollout, we've got no plans to include it in progression tables. I mean, obviously at some point in the future it might be included, but if and when it was, we would make sure we gave you plenty of notice that was going to happen. But at the moment, no, nothing in terms of accountability and performance tables.
Thank you, Julie. Frank, I'm just going to quickly go to you because we've got a question about who the email might have gone to in the institution. So possibly the T-level lead, but if not, we can get that clarified.
Answer it. I'll answer on Frank's behalf. We sat in the same room, so we're having to play about with the mute buttons. Yeah, so I've just put a message in the chat. I've just actually checked with the team that sent it out, and they've said that it would have gone to T-level leads. Anything that they send out in relation to sort of, you know, data and plans for future years and things would go to the T-level lead. If anybody hasn't received that, if you can get in touch with either us or with the data team in the department, the ESFA data team, who you would normally send these returns to, and we can make sure that you get that.
Thank you. And Julie, just, I know I'm picking on you slightly here, so I do apologise. I'm just trying to run through the list. It is a study programme funding, isn't it? Because we've had a question regarding funding, progression. So study programme funded.
Yep.
That was
Yeah,
apply.
it is to all study programme rules, including study programme funding. So yeah, so it is a sort of a separate funding system to that for T levels. Obviously, if you're looking at funding a student to be on a transition programme and then move on to their T level, you just need to make sure that sort of age-wise and things, they've still got the time to be able to complete their T level within the programme, within the funding rules for 16 to 19-year-olds.
And
Yeah.
hopefully in
Can
the
I-
pre-video, in the pre-video you'll see the ILR code and the specific ILR code. Sorry, Frank.
No, that's okay. All just to add to Julie's answer earlier regarding where the TLDC return is sent to, it is always sent to T-level contacts, but if there isn't a T-level contact available, it will have been sent to the head of organisation for the provider. Okay.
I can see on the call we've had a UTC. You know, we try and network you with other providers to understand about the type of provider that you might want to network with nationally. We do have some UTCs who are already delivering, so we would try and set you in a network where you've got those delivery providers in your unique setting who are already well on the way. I am aware that I've got 1 minute to go, but I cannot finish without going to Matt and Mark, just to have your reflections on your journey. If you were telling yourself, you were sat in this webinar, both of you probably 3 years ago now, what would you tell yourself if you were sat here again? I'm gonna go to Matt first.
Right, okay, I think for me, I would say just be brave, embrace it, see it for the opportunity that it is. Yes, there's a lot of work to be done. It's hard work if you're gonna go down this path, but the rewards are tremendous. I had a teacher about a month ago that said to me, if you offered me back my old course now, I wouldn't want it in a million years. And I think that kind of speaks volumes, really. So yeah, I would just say go for it, don't be scared.
Thanks for that. And Mark?
Yeah, sort of echo what Matt said there. Just have a try, give it a go. The courses that the T levels are and the transition programs that are currently running are fantastic. They'll get a full employer engagement, but also working with your T level leads and the different employers that you work with is vitally important when starting up, and looking at the LMI in the area as well, what's going on locally and nationally job wise, and how can we tailor our programs to that.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all our panel today, and thank you to you for joining us. If you want any more information, please do not hesitate to get in contact with the T-level support programme team. We are here 5 days a week to answer all your questions, but I hope you have a lovely evening and you found today's presentation extremely informative. Thank you very much for joining us. Bye.